What's up, everybody? Welcome into Everyday Betting. We've got a really terrific show for you. We're going to be going over the English Premier League as that begins this weekend, the new season. And I'm joined by Andrew Beasley, who's going to be breaking down everything for us. Andrew's really, really good with English soccer. He covers Liverpool very intently. And he does a lot of great things over on the other side of the pond in terms of covering sport and covering it in terms of betting. So I don't want to waste any time because it's a really good interview with Andrew. But we're going to highlight some of the things to look forward to in the EPL this season, along with the matches that are going to be taking place this weekend, starting on Saturday, running through Monday. And so let's just get right into it. Andrew Beasley gives us his thoughts on Liverpool, because that's the team he follows. That's the team that dominates seemingly last 3 years at home, especially, which he does bring up. So right off the bat, I ask Andrew what his thoughts are on the EPL this season and on Liverpool as their chances to repeat as the top club.
There's no such thing as jinxes, that's fine. But obviously Manchester City is a strong favourite with the bookmakers, and I can understand why, but because they had a lot of big wins last season, and obviously they had very strong underlying expected goal statistics and stuff like that. So I can understand why they're favourites, but I think Liverpool have got a very good chance of retaining it because they've got a very strong squad, many of whom are kind of in the peak of their careers. So I don't think Liverpool will sort of, fall off a cliff. I can't say for certain they'll win, but I think they've got a very good chance, definitely.
Yeah, so right there you heard Andrew. He covers Liverpool. They're his squad, but he does feel very certain that they can repeat as champions. I think Man City, the issue there becomes a bit of a concern. As Andrew and I discussed that Liverpool, they've been very consistent for about a few years now, especially at home. And so between Man City and Liverpool winning EPL this year, he does like Liverpool. Keep in mind, Man City right now is the current favorite with minus odds, believe it or not. So kind of getting away from the top-heavy teams like Liverpool, Man City, Man U, and Chelsea, going to the middle of the pack, the top six. Who is going to finish in the top six of the EPL standings, or the table, as they call it, at the end of the year? There's a few teams. You got Leicester, you got Arsenal, you've got Tottenham. So kind of taking away Man City, Man U, Chelsea, and Liverpool, I asked Andrew who he fancies to finish near the top six in the EPL standings.
Well, if you look at the last time that a couple of the bigger clubs had relatively bad seasons, 2015-16, when Leicester won the league, they all sort of came back strongly. And for the next three seasons, the big six clubs all took all of the top six spots in the league. So we may see something similar again. I think it's quite hard to tell with Arsenal and Tottenham because their underlying statistics were so poor last season. They probably should have been sort of mid-table if you based it on that alone. Clearly, because they've got guys like Harry Kane and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, far above average strikers, that enables them to sort of win games and pick up points that, their sort of underlying numbers suggest that they probably shouldn't have. I think, to be honest, I would expect that the big six clubs probably will take the top six spots. I think Leicester have a chance if Brendan Rodgers can kind of turn them around, because they had a terrible sort of end to the season. The performances weren't so bad. But
Leicester, actually, Andrew pointed out at one episode that we did that Leicester actually had one of the worst records in EPL, not only since returning from the COVID break, but entering the 2020 calendar year. So even turning from 2019 to 2020 before the COVID break, so basically January and February, you had Leicester playing awful. Then they come back from the COVID break and they continue to play awful. And so I think that's what Andrew's kind of alluding to with his point right there.
The results were, and that's kind of hard to turn away from. I mean, I know from his time at Liverpool, 2014-15, his last full season, there was had some bad results in that, and he couldn't really turn it around, even though sometimes performances weren't so bad. So if you can do that this time with Leicester, I think they could be in the mix.
Yeah, so Leicester kind of the odd man out in the top six, but Andrew believes that they can get the job done. But Arsenal, Tottenham seem to be the two that he's fancying a little bit higher than Leicester to finish in the top six. But it should be a good mid-pack race, even right below into the top 10. You've got a good race there. You've got teams like Sheffield and Everton trying to vie into the top 6, top 10. Everton made a bunch of moves. Sheffield was very surprising in their performance during the Premier League last season. You had a lot of people, including Andrew, who admits he thought Sheffield would be relegated. Not only were they not relegated, they finished within the top 10. They were very, very, very good last year, but they may have hit their peak, as Andrew alludes to. And so between Everton and Sheffield, I wanted Andrew to give me a breakdown of those two teams and which he thinks has a better chance to go into maybe the top 6 or definitely finish within the top 10. This is what he had to say.
Everton's interesting because they've obviously signed a couple of good players, but it's still it's sort of a strange situation for Carlo Ancelotti because he's used to dealing with teams and players that are basically fighting for the league title every year. So this is the first time in over 20 years where he's going into a season with a team that aren't going to do that, which isn't to say that he can't turn Everton into a bit more of a force than they have been, but it's a big ask to do something that he hasn't sort of been doing for the majority of his managerial career. Yeah. Clearly, if he can get James Rodriguez up and firing, then clearly he could help them quite a lot. And their stats weren't as bad as perhaps their position in the table would suggest. So I think he could certainly get them going in the right direction, but it might be a big ask to get anything above sort of 7th or 8th. Sheffield United, obviously they surprised a lot of people last season, myself included. I'll admit, my own ignorance on that part. I thought they would get relegated last season, and they stayed there very comfortably and finished 9th, if I remember rightly. I think there has to be a question mark about how much further they can push on from that without serious investment. I mean, not that that's underachieving by any means, but whether they can actually push on and reach Europe. Because obviously, people can give teams like Wolves a lot of credit for kind of qualifying for the Europa League the season before, but they have spent a lot of money, so they sort of deserved to be in the talk for that sort of position based on that alone. So while I certainly don't think Sheffield United will be in any relegation trouble, I do sort of wonder if they actually kind of reach pretty much what would be their peak anyway last season. So how do they sort of improve on that? I think it's quite hard, but they certainly proved me wrong last season, so don't be surprised if they do it again.
Yeah, and so I think that Sheffield to reach the top 10 at plus 300 might actually be worth a look. I know Andrew brought up the Wolves being, a club that spends some investment money, so they deservingly get near the top 6. If you like Wolverhampton to finish in the top 6, the Wolves, that's plus 250. So there is some plus value in going between those two.
I think top 10. I think it would be a bit of a surprise if they sort of fell off that far. And I suppose the only thing is, from their point of view, is that Leeds are looking like they could do well this year.
Yeah, so Sheffield, it does seem what might prevent them from reaching the top 10 this year is if Leeds brings the form that they had in the Championship League over to the Premier League. And that's something Andrew touches on in his opinion when I asked him, is Sheffield top 10 plus 300 a good bet?
Comfortably the best team in the Championship. If they bring that form into the Premier League, they could be looking at a top 10 spot, which could rule Sheffield United out of it. But I mean, certainly compared to the established teams in the league, if you look away from the sort of big sticks, there's not going to be too many that finish ahead of Sheffield United.
Yeah, and so I think Sheffield United plus 300 top 10 is a good bet. But if you like Leeds, they're plus 225. Quite frankly, I would want a little bit higher value for a promoted team. I don't care how good they are. Plus 225, I don't know. It's good value if you think they're going to reach the top 10, which they can, but it's very difficult. For basically what you're betting on is a mirrored Sheffield season out of Leeds. But I think between those two at plus 250 and plus 300 for Sheffield to finish top 10, definitely worth a look. And we move to the bottom of the table. Teams who will be relegated. You have Fulham at minus 110 to be relegated. They are favored. Then you have Aston Villa plus 600 to finish at the very bottom of the table, which might be worth a bet that Andrew alludes to. And so I asked him for his thoughts on the bottom of the table for EPL and teams that could possibly be relegated.
It's hard to know how a team's going to perform when they get promoted, but what we can say from looking at the stats is that on expected goals, Fulham were only the 9th best team in the Championship, but got into the top 6, then came up through the playoffs. Right. But if they're only the 9th best team in the Championship, they're going to have to improve a hell of a lot to become, not one of the worst 3 teams in the Premier League. There are quite a few poor teams in the Premier League. I mean, it is possible, but they are deservedly sort of favourites to go down. I think a similar thing with West Brom. Their figures were a bit better, but they were quite weak when it came to shots on target. And too often last season, their opponents were having more shots on target than they were. Now, again, you'll get away with that in the Championship, but you'll get away with it far less often in the Premier League.
Yeah, so Fulham, probably not looking good for the Premier League this year. But again, going to Aston Villa a little bit more.
Away from them, I mean, certainly history suggests that Aston Villa will be in for a struggle because they stayed up with 35 points. Only the 4th team to stay up with so few since Premier League switched to 20 teams. And the previous 3 examples of teams who stayed up with so few points all went down the next season. So rather than sort of staying up and celebrating and sort of building from there, the other teams struggled to get and went down. So, if you sort of put faith in what's happened before, then Aston Villa should look like to struggle again.
Yeah, and at plus 600 to finish as the worst team in the EPL this season, there's tremendous value right there. But again, you're probably going to see Fulham, as Andrew said, finish at the very bottom. But again, for plus 600, Aston Villa is absolutely worth the take to finish bottom of the table. They should be relegated. So really, you would just be betting Aston Villa against Fulham and whoever else is going to be at the bottom. It could be West Brom. It could not be. Only time will tell. But I think Andrew really hit a gem there with Aston Villa, and that could be where your money should be focused in terms of relegation. Now, Aston Villa to be relegated is not plus 600, but you're going to get plus value at it still, like plus 220, plus 225. So before Saturday, I do think there's a hedging possibility for Aston Villa if you want to take them to be relegated, along with for plus 600 being the last team in the table standings at the end of the year. I think there's a good hedge opportunity there for you to win a lot of money off Aston Villa. You're never going to win money off Aston Villa. This is probably one of the only markets to take advantage of an Aston Villa bet entering the season. Going to different markets, though, we have future markets with the players. And this is kind of fun, but as Andrew says, he kind of got his fingers burnt on player market betting. But you can bet on player markets. You can bet on how many goals they'll score, how many assists they'll score, who will win the Golden Boot, things like that, player of the year odds. And so I really just ask Andrew to dive into the futures players market and anyone that stands out in terms of betting and good value that people should be eyeing. This is what he said.
Well, this is a market where I always seem to get my fingers burned because for the last couple of years I've been having Gabriel Jesus as a outside sort of bet, an each way bet, because he always has loads and loads of great chances. But the problem is he misses quite a lot of them. But if it was settled on expected goals, I think he'd probably get the Golden Boot. But obviously it doesn't work like that. But obviously that's something you can look for a bit of sort of inspiration when you're betting. I think it can be quite hard this because obviously there's all the usual names at the top of the list. Yeah. But then the last season, at the start of the season, Danny Ings was 200 to 1 in sort of UK odds. He was 200 to 1 to win the Golden Boot, and well, he didn't. But I mean, he would have been a good bet.
Yeah, and so I think that's a good bet too. I believe he's plus 2,000. Danny Ings, but as Andrew alluded to, he usually sees pretty low odds. And then last year, he almost came very close to cashing in. I'm not sure I would bet on him this year, but he is plus 2,000 for those who fancy Danny Ainge.
Good bet each way. Yeah, so away from the sort of regular names, it's sort of hard to know who to go for. It's an unusual season as well. Obviously, with it being a shorter time frame, everything's going to be packed in. I would look at somebody like Harry Kane, who traditionally misses part of the season through injury, almost without fail.
Yeah, plus 550. He's actually co-favored, so I might want to stay away from Harry Kane in terms of this betting market.
Now, unless they manage it well through this season, that will almost certainly happen again, which will inhibit his chances of becoming the top scorer. Obviously, someone like Aguero is getting older now, possibly won't play every game. Obviously I'm biased, but obviously I think Salah will have a very good chance. And assuming that he signs a contract extension and stays, you'd have to think Aubameyang has a very good chance. I know that he's scored 7 of Arsenal's last 8 goals in their competitive fixtures. So, with everything going through him, at least that's how it looks. And they're bound to create chances. He could definitely have a chance. He wouldn't be a bad bet for the top scorer.
Yeah, really, it does seem that Andrew is alluding to the top names for the top clubs. That's kind of where you should be focused on right now, because you really look around. This is going to be a weird season with the short turnaround and everything that's happened. So if you are going to look into the players' future market here for most goals, look for a big time player on a big time team. That kind of seems to be the working trend for this market. Then you go to the young player of the year market. And this is a tricky market, as Andrew points out, because when you think of young player of the year award, you're thinking rookie, maybe sophomore season in the league. That's not the case with the EPL. You've got guys in there that are savvy vets. And so I asked Andrew, it's like, who is your best pick for young player of the year? And Andrew quickly turned around and said, this category is not as black and white as you might think it is. It's very tricky to bet, and he explains it right here.
It's always a bit of a weird one, or quite often the young player of the year, because they allow players in that, not that they're not young, but players who have had several years in the Premier League are still eligible. So it's not like they're rookies, they're guys who know their way about. Clearly, Alexander-Arnold has to be in with a good shout because he keeps finishing near the top of the assist charts. He was second last season, the most assists ever by a defender Premier League. So with form like that, he's clearly got to be in with a chance. But then, if Manchester United are improved, as seems likely, if he stays fit, maybe Marcus Rashford scores 20 goals this season. That's certainly not beyond the realms of possibility, and then he would be a certainty. So it's quite hard at this point to sort of say who will win. I think it's safe to say that one of the players from the big teams will win. It's unlikely anyone's going to sort of come through and prevent that. But exactly who, I'm not sure, unless you've got any sort of suggestions there that look like good value there.
I did not. I had no suggestions there for Andrew. So it does seem, though, the advice for players market in the future market, whether it be player of the year, goal scoring, young player of the year, whatever it is, stay in the lane of top teams. They're the ones that are typically going to see players win these awards. And so if you want to put your money that way, I would suggest that. Lots of good value, but a lot more difficult to hit. I really do think of all the bets that we've gone over entering the Premier League, I think Aston Villa hedge is the best bet you could possibly make right now. It's going to take a while for that bet to cash out because you have to wait till the end of the year. So you're going to have a lot of patience. But I do think that hedging Aston Villa is your best bet entering the Premier League in terms of, the market, the futures market, things that you can bet on before the season starts that will close when the season starts. Now, that's not to say the relegation market will open after, the first weekend games are played. But the odds will change, and you have no idea where they're going to go. You might get better odds for Aston Villa, but I don't think they play Saturday, Sunday, or Monday. So they'll probably stay the same. But either way, it does seem that it's a bit tricky with the players market, but there's opportunity to make money hedging the relegation market. And then you could really have some fun with the top six. Like I said, the Wolves are plus 250 to reach the top six. You have Sheffield at plus 300 and Leeds at plus 225 to reach the top 10. So there's some fun in the middle of the table this season to bet. There's some value at the bottom of the table, and then you might just want to stay away from any player future bets. As Andrew said, he gets his fingers burnt a lot in that market. So we got games. I asked Andrew to help me break down some of these matches that we have this weekend. We've got a lot beginning on Saturday. We start with Fulham Arsenal. They're going to kick off the new season for us. And Arsenal's seeing pretty good odds at -1. I think it was -170 yesterday when I looked. Arsenal on the road is awful, though. They've been playing better lately, however. And so I asked Andrew, is Aston Villa cheap on the road worth a bet? Or should we still be wary of them?
Hard to say. Their away form last season was terrible, to be honest with you. But as we've discussed earlier, Fulham weren't that good either. So in that situation, you tend to go with the favourites. So yeah, I would certainly expect Arsenal to win. They've been playing a lot better sort of the end of the last season. Picked up some big wins. They've rarely had trouble beating the lesser lights in the Premier League. Whatever Arsenal's form, they tend to do all right in the against the smaller teams. They did struggle with that a little last year away from home. But with their improved form and Aubameyang form and stuff, I think they should win. If anything, I'd probably be looking for them to win by a couple of goals.
Oh, wow, yeah. So you might even want to look to the spread market there. I asked Andrew if Arsenal would win to 0. He says it's definitely very possible. But the safe bet here is, for as cheap that Arsenal is, just take them straight up to win. Then you've got Liverpool and Leeds. Now, Liverpool is the team Andrew covers. Leeds is almost I don't want to say they're like England's team this year, but they are very much the dark horse that everyone is rooting for because they can get the job done. And so I asked Andrew, for his unbiased opinion, but he's going to lean Liverpool. Why not? They're the best club in England. They were last year. They're at home. They win at home almost like it's clockwork. They're -350, almost 400 to beat Leeds. So what's the betting breakdown for this match? I asked Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's hard to know quite how Leeds are going to perform in the top division, as we've sort of said. But what we can say is that Liverpool haven't lost a home game in the league for over 3 years now. So for it to happen to a promoted team, even one as good as Leeds would appear to be, I think would be a bit of a surprise. Right. Liverpool had a bit of a strange sort of pre-season. They've conceded quite a few soft goals. They let in 2 against Salzburg, 2 against Blackpool last Saturday. So their defence hasn't been sort of fully firing basically since they won the league. They seem to have sort of lost a bit of their edge. I mean, assuming that comes back, and you can't always just sort of switch it on and off, but assuming that comes back, I mean, Liverpool should win easily enough with their attack. But I wouldn't expect it to be a sort of high-scoring game. That could be another 2-0 perhaps.
Right, yeah, or even 1-0 in favor of Liverpool. I could absolutely see that for sure. Then we move to Saturday's matches. We've got Crystal Palace and Southampton. They're going to be taking each other on. Then you've also got West Ham and Newcastle. And so I asked Andrew, of those 2 matches, which team probably has the best chance to win? He likes Southampton.
I like Southampton a lot. I think they did a lot of good things last season, and because they had a poor start to the year and they lost 9-0 against Leicester and things like that, I think a lot of people sort of wrote them off. Yeah. But they were a better team than their sort of early season form suggested. Whereas Palace were pretty poor throughout the campaign, particularly when it came to shots on target. They only had.
Interrupting Andrew real quick. He likes Crystal Palace to be relegated, and so they have great value to be relegated. They're like plus 500, I believe. And so also going back to the conversation we had earlier in relegation betting, feel free to take a flyer on Crystal Palace.
They only had more shots on target than their opponents in 8 of their 38 games, which was the fewest of any team in the Premier League last season. Yeah. So with a record like that, with an aging squad, and maybe if Zaha leaves, Crystal Palace could be in for a tough season this year. So, if I was to pick one there, I think Southampton definitely have a very good chance of winning that one.
And Southampton, they have plus value to win right now, so there is value in taking them right now. They are on the road, though. Keep that in mind.
The other game was West Ham Newcastle. Yes. Sorry. Yep. Yeah. West Ham Newcastle. Newcastle were a strange team as well because unexpected goals. They were the worst team in the Premier League last season, but they managed to stay up. Had some good fortune along the way. They've added Ryan Fraser and Callum Wilson, and in 2018-19 they were the most productive duo in the Premier League. They combined for 12 goals. And that didn't really happen for Bournemouth last year, and they went down. But obviously, if Newcastle can get that sort of thing up and running again, they could be a lot better than they were last season. They may end up finishing in roughly the same place, but last year they deserved to go down. I think this year they could be a bit more secure in their status. West Ham did look like they had improved at the end of last season, but you just never know with West Ham. I mean, they recently sold one of their good young players, and the captain, Mark Noble, tweeted about how he was unhappy about it. Yeah. So you never quite know what sort of the sort of mood is at West Ham. I think that's, at this stage, I think that's a very tough game to call because you don't really know what shape either team is going to be in. Right. I think because West Ham are at home and finished the season reasonably well, I think I'd go with them to win that one. Yeah, West Ham,
they actually played very well to end last year. I say last year, last season. It was only a month or two ago. But West Ham, if you were picking which of the two teams between West Ham and Newcastle just played better to end the year, it's without a doubt West Ham. But again, the mood might be an issue because they traded one of their young players, which upset the captain of West Ham, as Andrew just pointed out to. So that would be a bit of a more tricky one to bet. The Southampton seems to be a bit more of a lock of the two matches played on, what is it, Sunday, Saturday? So Saturday. Yeah, the other two matches played Saturday. Sunday, however, we have Tottenham-Everton, which I believe is going to be one of the better matches, on paper at least, in the EPL this weekend. And you have West Brom and Leicester. And so I asked Andrew to break down those two matches as well.
West Brom Leicester, interesting one, because obviously Leicester sort of thrive on counter-attacking and stuff like that, which they tend to be able to do away from home. And obviously West Brom may not open up quite so much as a lot of teams would because they're their first game back. I would still expect Leicester to win that one. Tottenham-Everton, I mean, as you said, it's probably the most interesting game. It's Jose Mourinho's first full season in charge of the club, and the same for Ancelotti, as we discussed earlier. They've made some good signings. I think Tottenham have signed players who should improve them. Højbjerg from Southampton and Doherty from Wolves. In midfield and right back respectively, but they're not players that are going to sort of light up the league. They might make Spurs slightly better, but they're not going to be chipping in with 10 goals or 10 assists or anything like that. They're good solid players and they should help, but they're not going to make a huge difference. Tottenham are strong favourites for that one, and deservedly so. But it's just one of those games where maybe this New Look Everton team could catch them off guard. I think from memory they have a pretty terrible record at Tottenham. But it's one of those early season games where Everton could win 2-0 and thoroughly deserve to, and all of a sudden the sort of narrative for the season will be set that they're going to do really well and Tottenham struggle. I think that's certainly the most interesting game of the weekend.
I'd have to agree that this game between Tottenham and Everton might actually set a narrative for both clubs moving forward this year, which is very unfair for both clubs, really. But that's sports for you. So it'll be interesting. Tottenham has minus value. I don't think I would take that just because it's expensive. Everton, I like Andrew's assessment. They're a new look club that could catch Tottenham off guard. I don't think they will, but they absolutely could. And for that, I'm not sure I want to touch this game in terms of betting. Maybe both teams to score would be a little bit more ideal, but I don't have those odds in front of me. Sheffield Wolves, they're going to be playing, I believe, Monday. And that, to me, is also a sneaky good game. We both, Andrew and I, like the Wolves the Wolves Sheffield United game to be low scoring and a possible draw, which Andrew says has very good odds of occurring.
I think that's the one I'm right saying is that most likely, according to the bookmakers, to be a draw this weekend. I think it's easy to see why Wolves had a lot of draws last season, a lot of problem games and stuff like that.
Yes, I do.
We've spoken about it on here before, if I remember rightly. I mean, certainly looking at the forecast on 538, they've got it as a 32% chance for Sheffield United, 38 for Wolves, and 30 to the draw. So, I mean, that really is close and very difficult to call. I always, if in doubt, go with the home team, so perhaps Sheffield United. But yeah, that's a very tough game to call.
Yeah, I think a draw and probably under 2.5 goals would be the way you want to bet that match. And then Chelsea, they kind of wrap up the weekend. They're the last game to play on Monday. And there's a bit of a high expectation for them this year, and Christian Pulisic as well. And so I wanted Andrew's take on Chelsea's expectations, how he thinks they're going to fare this year, and then their match on Monday as well.
Yeah, they've obviously spent a lot of money. Last time I checked earlier this week, their net spend was 135 million, and nobody else's was more than 65. So they're spending far more than everybody else.
Yep.
And that doesn't include Thiago Silva, who, while he's a free transfer, will be on enormous wages.
Yeah.
It seems possibly like they've got their priorities a little bit mixed up in that their attack was pretty good anyway, and they bought a lot of excellent attacking players.
Yeah.
But it was the defence that was the problem, particularly the goalkeeper. So I guess we'll have to wait and see if Thiago Silva and Ben Chilwell, who they brought from Leicester, can help sort of shore up the defence. Obviously, there's still a few weeks of the transfer window. Maybe they'll bring in a goalkeeper. But as it stands, the defence is going to be more of a concern than the attack, certainly. I think they should have too much for Brighton, even though I think Brighton were another team, a little bit like Southampton, who were kind of underrated when their performances were perhaps a bit better than the results were suggesting. But all that said, I think Chelsea should have too much for them, yeah.
Yeah. So he likes Chelsea to win. Should be a good season for Chelsea. I mean, if they're spending more money on attacking players after they have been attacking well, they might be going like this Houston Rockets sort of strategy where it's just, let's just see how many offensive players we can put on the field and how many points we can score to see who can keep up with us. Not even worry about defense. We'll see, though. It should be good. And so that's kind of the EPL breakdown. I asked Andrew to go ahead and share where you can find him and his work because he really has a lot of tremendous insight on the sport and is specifically this league, the English league. And so here's Andrew giving us his Twitter handle and different websites and stories where you can find his work.
Yeah, I am on Twitter as BaseTuneToRed. If you just search my name, Andrew Beasley, it should come up. And I'm always writing stuff on there. I've done quite a few articles recently for Pinnacle, including a preview of the title race and the relegation race for this season. So they'll be on Pinnacle. And also got another thing coming out with Cloudbet soon, I think, as well. So various betting things, but obviously away from that, a lot of Liverpool content. So if you're interested in Liverpool, then give me a follow, and there's all kinds of stuff I'll be sharing.
Awesome. So yeah, let's just do a real quick recap of what we like before we log off here. So Liverpool at plus value to win the EPL over Man City seems to be a good bet. You've got top 6 odds. Good value for Wolves at plus 250, but they're going to have to beat out Arsenal, Tottenham, Leicester, and then the obvious Man U and Chelsea. You've got top 10 odds to consider between Sheffield at plus 300 and Leeds at plus 225. The best bet, though, I think, before the season starts is hedging Aston Villa to be relegated for plus 250, something like that, plus 225, and Aston Villa to finish at the very bottom of the table. They're going to be the last place team at the end of the year for plus 600. That is tremendous value for something that has very good odds of occurring as the season progresses. Kind of stay away from the player future prop bets, especially the young player future prop bets, because that category is not just young players. They've got guys in there with tons of veteran experience. So it's a bit of a tricky market to bet. And then for Saturday's matches, you got Arsenal with pretty low odds. Liverpool, they should win, but are expensive. Southampton could be a good bet at plus value on the road against Crystal Palace. And then you've got Sheffield and Wolverhampton, which should be a draw or under 2.5 goals. And so that's going to be our EPL preview, breakdown of the season. And then we'll have Andrew on as the season progresses, as things change and matchups, they come up on our radar. So EPL is beginning. Mostly soccer is back in Europe. You've got most of the leagues back: Denmark, Greece, Turkey, Sweden, Poland, Denmark, Belgium. They're all back. We're kind of waiting on the major leagues to start back up. League One is well underway. And so we've got the EPL Saturday. We've got La Liga in Spain. That's starting up this weekend. And then we've got Bundesliga and Serie A. That's Italy. Those two leagues will be picking back up very, very soon. So all of this shit going on. The NFL just started. And you can see why I'm drinking coffee while we're recording here. So anyway, that's going to do it for me. Thank you guys so much, and gals, for tuning in and watching. Be sure to head over to Everyday Betting for your best betting advice. And we are, of course, with the Everyday Sports Fan. So be sure to give them a follow as well. You'll see on Twitter and also go to their website. They've got a lot of good coverage. They do a really good job of covering a lot of sports. When you've got a company like Everyday Sports Fan covering the WNBA on a very consistent and daily basis, I think that should give you an indication of the type of people that are really working there. They're really working hard to bring you as much as they can, which I respect for someone who covers over 30 leagues domestically and internationally. I respect the hell out of that. The more the merrier. So thank you all for watching. Go make some bets, go make some money, and hopefully you can get some off the EPL this year. Thank you all for tuning in. Have a good one.